3 years. That is exactly 1,095 days. That is how long I have been a statue in my own life. I have sat in this wheelchair, frozen behind dark sunglasses, listening to them. I listened to my husband, Adrian, plan his future without me. I listened to his mistress, Sasha, laugh about how droopy my face looked. I listened to the doctors say I was a vegetable, a lost cause, a broken doll with a pulse. They thought I was gone. They thought my mind was as dead as my legs. But they were wrong. I wasn't gone. I was just buffering. And tonight, the download is finally complete. The ballroom of the Plaza Hotel was smelling of expensive perfume and betrayal. It was the biggest night of Adrian's life. The night he was taking our company, Thorne Tech, public. But everyone knew the real reason we were here. It wasn't just a business launch. It was a funeral for my marriage. I sat center stage, the spotlight burning my skin. I could feel the vibrations of the applause as Adrian walked out. He looked like a god in his tuxedo, tall, charming, the grieving husband who had sacrificed everything for his invalid wife. If you are enjoying the story, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment below where you are watching from. Thank you, Adrian said into the microphone, his voice thick with fake emotion. He walked over to me and placed a hand on my shoulder. To the audience, it looked like a comforting touch. To me, it felt like a shackle. He dug his fingers into my collarbone, a subtle reminder to stay still. Tonight is bittersweet, Adrian told the crowd of investors and senators. Thorne Tech is launching the future. But as many of you know, the past hangs heavy on my heart. He looked down at me, wiping a tear that wasn't there. My wife, Elena, the brilliant woman who helped me start this company in a garage, she isn't with us anymore. Not really. A sympathetic ah rippled through the room. Sasha, standing in the front row in a dress that was cut way too low for a corporate event, dabbed her dry eyes with a tissue. She was acting her heart out. The doctors have told me it's time to let go, Adrian continued, his voice dropping to a tragic whisper. Her condition is deteriorating. To keep her at home is selfish. So, with a broken heart, I have decided to move Elena to a specialized facility in Switzerland. There, she can live out her final days in peace. He signaled to his lawyer, Marcus. Marcus walked onto the stage carrying a clipboard. Because Elena cannot write, Adrian announced, I have to legally sign her rights away for her. This document grants me full power of attorney over her medical care and her voting shares in the company. It is a formality, but a necessary one to protect her legacy. Adrian knelt down beside my wheelchair. He smelled of scotch and peppermint. He pulled a gold fountain pen from his pocket, the one I gave him for our 5th anniversary. Okay, Elena, he whispered, low enough that the microphone wouldn't pick it up. Showtime. Don't embarrass me, or I swear to God I'll tell the nurses in Switzerland to forget your pain medication. He grabbed my limp right hand. He jammed the heavy pen into my fingers. He wrapped his large, warm hand over my cold one, forcing a grip. Just a simple X, he said to the crowd, smiling sadly. Witnessed by all of you. He began to push my hand toward the paper. The tip of the pen hovered over the signature line. The camera crews zoomed in, projecting my shaking hand onto the massive screen behind us. I felt the pressure of his hand. He was strong. He was arrogant. He thought I was just a body to be moved. The pen touched the paper. Ink bled into the white fiber. Adrian pushed, but my hand didn't move. He frowned slightly, the smile faltering for a microsecond. He pushed harder. Come on, darling, he muttered through gritted teeth. Let's get this over with. He shoved my hand, trying to force the X. I shoved back. It wasn't a twitch. It was a lock. My fingers, which had been motionless for 3 years, suddenly clamped around the barrel of the pen with the strength of a vice. I locked my wrist. Adrian froze. I could feel his pulse jump against my palm. He looked down at our hands. He tried to pull away, but I held on. I held him there, trapped in his own performance. Slowly, agonizingly slowly, I lifted my head. The crowd went silent. The murmurs stopped. Even the music seemed to fade away. I reached up with my left hand, the hand that was supposed to be paralyzed, and grabbed the rim of my dark sunglasses. Adrian's eyes went wide. Elena, he whispered, fear finally cracking his perfect mask. What are you doing? I pulled the glasses off and threw them onto the stage floor. They shattered with a loud crack that echoed like a gunshot. I looked straight into the camera lens. My eyes weren't cloudy. They weren't vacant. They were sharp, clear, and burning with 3 years of unsaid rage. Then, I looked at him. I don't think an ex is going to cover it, Adrian, I said. My voice was raspy from disuse, but it was loud. It boomed through the speakers, hitting the back wall of the ballroom. Gasps erupted from the audience. Someone dropped a glass. Sasha stood up in the front row, her mouth hanging open like a fish. Adrian stumbled back, falling onto his butt on the stage. He looked at me like I was a ghost. You can speak? I can do a hell of a lot more than speak, I said. I stood up. My legs screamed in protest, weak from years of atrophy. But adrenaline is a powerful drug. I stood tall, smoothing down the expensive dress they had put me in like a doll. I towered over him. I looked out at the crowd. 300 jaw-dropped faces staring back at me. My husband, I said into the microphone, my voice gaining strength with every word, seems to have left out a few details. He told you I was brain dead. He told you I was a vegetable. What he didn't tell you is that I have been awake. For 3 years. I have been awake while he moved his mistress into my bedroom. I have been awake while he embezzled money from the employee pension fund. And I was definitely awake when he planned to ship me off to a Swiss asylum so he could sell my company to the highest bidder. Cut the mic. Adrian screamed, scrambling to his feet. She's having an episode. She's insane. Security. 2 massive guards rushed the stage. I turned to them. I didn't flinch. Touch me, I said calmly, and I will sue you for everything you own. I am the founder of this company. I am the majority shareholder. And unless you want to be charged with kidnapping, you will back off. The guards hesitated. They looked at Adrian, who was red-faced and sweating, and then at me, the woman who had just risen from the dead. They stopped. I looked back at Adrian. You wanted a signature, darling? I took the power of attorney document from his trembling hand. I held it up for the cameras. Then, I ripped it in half. Then in half again. I threw the pieces in his face. I'm signing your termination, I said. Meet me in the boardroom. Now. I walked off the stage. I didn't look back. I could hear the chaos erupting behind me. Reporters shouting, flashes popping, and Adrian screaming at his lawyer, but I focused on putting one foot in front of the other. I made it to the elevator before my legs gave out. I leaned against the brass railing, gasping for air. The pain was excruciating, but it was a good pain. It was the pain of being alive. 5 minutes later, the doors to the executive boardroom flew open. Adrian stormed in, followed by Sasha and his slimy lawyer, Marcus. You think this is funny? Adrian roared, kicking a chair across the room. You think you can just wake up and humiliate me? I built this empire while you were drooling on a pillow. You didn't build anything, I said, sitting at the head of the table. You were the face, Adrian. You were the smile. I was the code. That doesn't matter. Marcus the lawyer shouted, waving his tablet. Adrian has been the acting CEO for 3 years. He has full control. You are mentally unstable. We will have a judge declare you incompetent by morning. This little stunt changes nothing. Sasha chimed in, trying to look tough. Yeah, you have no money, Elena. Adrian froze your accounts years ago. You're destitute. You're wearing a dress he bought. I poured myself a glass of water. My hand shook slightly, but I managed to take a sip. You're right, I said softly. I don't have access to the joint accounts. But you boys seem to have forgotten the pre-seed agreement we signed 7 years ago. Adrian scoffed. The napkin contract? That was lost in the office move 5 years ago. It's gone. It's gone from the file cabinet, I agreed. But it's not gone from the server. I tapped the glass table. Did you really think I spent 3 years just staring at the wall? You left your laptop open in the bedroom every night, Adrian. You used my fingerprint to unlock your phone while I was sleeping. I didn't just sit there. I worked. I wrote a backdoor into the entire Thorne tech network. Adrian's face went pale. What did you do? I initiated a protocol I like to call the alimony, I said. As of 2 minutes ago, every single liquid asset held by Thorne Tech, the Cayman accounts, the crypto wallets, the offshore shells, has been drained. Drained? Marcus shrieked, looking at his tablet. His eyes bulged. Oh my God. The numbers, they're zeroing out. Adrian, the accounts are empty. It's all going to the Elena Thorne Foundation. What? Adrian screamed, grabbing the tablet. That's impossible. That's $1 billion. Put it back. Give me the password. He lunged across the table, grabbing me by the throat. Fix it, he screamed, shaking me. Fix it, or I swear to God I will finish the job. I should have checked the brakes myself. The room went deadly silent. Adrian froze. He realized what he had just said. He slowly let go of my neck. Sasha gasped from the corner. Brakes? You told me it was a drunk driver. I rubbed my throat, looking at him with pure pity. Thank you, Adrian. I was hoping you would confess. Who are you talking to? He whispered. I pointed to the camera in the corner of the ceiling. The little red light was blinking. I've been live streaming this meeting to the SEC and the NYPD since I walked in, I said. And just for insurance. I pulled a small remote from my pocket and pressed a button. The giant presentation screen on the wall flickered to life. It was a video from 3 years ago. Security footage from our garage. It showed a man in a black hoodie sliding under my white Porsche with a pair of wire cutters. He was under there for 2 minutes. When he slid out, he pulled down his hood to wipe the sweat from his forehead. It was Adrian. Clear as day. That video, I said calmly, has just been uploaded to YouTube, Twitter, and sent directly to the district attorney's inbox. They call it attempted murder, Adrian. And in New York, that carries 25 years. Adrian stared at the screen. He looked at the empty bank accounts on the tablet. He looked at Sasha, who was backing away from him like he was radioactive. The color drained from his face until he looked like a corpse. The arrogance was gone. The billionaire playboy was gone. All that was left was a scared, pathetic man. You, he stammered. You ruined everything. No, I said, standing up again. I just took back what was mine. Sirens began to wail in the distance. They were getting closer. Fast. I'd run if I were you, I told him. The elevator is slow, but the stairs might buy you a few minutes before the cops block the exits. Adrian looked at the door. He looked at me. His eyes shifted. The fear turned into something darker, something violent. He reached into his tuxedo jacket. He didn't pull out a phone. He didn't pull out a wallet. He pulled out a gun. Sasha screamed. Marcus dove under the table. Adrian pointed the silver pistol right at my chest. His hand was shaking, but at this range, he couldn't miss. You want the company? Adrian whispered, his eyes wild. You can have it, but you're not going to be alive to enjoy it. He cocked the hammer. Unlock the accounts, Elena. Now, or you die right here. I looked down the barrel of the gun. My heart was hammering against my ribs so hard I thought it would crack them. I knew the police were coming, but they were minutes away. I had seconds. I can't, I lied. It's a blockchain transfer. It's irreversible. Then you're useless, Adrian snarled. He squeezed the trigger. Click. No bang. No bullet. Just a dry, metallic click. Adrian blinked. He pulled the trigger again. Click. Click. He looked at the gun in confusion. I told you I was awake for 3 years, Adrian. I said, my voice dropping to a deadly whisper. I saw where you hid the gun in the safe. And I saw where you kept the bullets. Did you really think I wouldn't empty the magazine before I came to the gala? I reached into my pocket and pulled out a handful of gold bullets. I dropped them on the glass table. Clink, clink, clink. Checkmate. The boardroom doors burst open. SWAT officers flooded the room, rifles raised. Federal agents. Drop the weapon. Adrian dropped the empty gun. He fell to his knees, sobbing. As they handcuffed him and dragged him away, he looked back at me one last time. I made you, he screamed. You're nothing without me. I watched them drag him into the elevator. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I felt clean. I turned to the window. The city lights were twinkling below. I was the CEO. I was the owner. I was free. But then, my phone buzzed on the table. It was a text message. Unknown number. I picked it up. The message was short, but it made my blood run cold. Nice show, Elena. But Adrian was just the middleman. We still have your toxicology report. We know you weren't paralyzed by the crash. You were paralyzed by the neurotoxin we sold Adrian. If you don't return the money by midnight, we release the proof that you knew you were being poisoned and let it happen for sympathy. The game isn't over. It's just beginning. I stared at the phone. Adrian was in handcuffs, but the real monster was still out there. And he knew my darkest secret. I wasn't just a victim. I was a player. And now, I had to play for my life. The text message burned on my screen like a brand. We know you weren't paralyzed by the crash. We know about the neurotoxin. Return the money by midnight, or we tell the world you faked it all. I stared at the phone. My victory champagne hadn't even been poured yet, and already, the glass was shattering. Adrian was gone, dragged out in handcuffs, but the snake had more than one head. I looked around the empty boardroom. The SWAT team had cleared out. The silence was heavy. I wasn't safe here. I needed to move. I grabbed my laptop and headed for the door, but it swung open before I could touch the handle. Marcus Vane walked in. Adrian's lawyer didn't look scared anymore. He looked smooth. He looked like a shark that smelled blood in the water. He was holding a piece of paper, and he was smiling. "Going somewhere, Mrs. Thorne?" Marcus asked, blocking my path. "Get out of my way, Marcus," I said, clutching my laptop. "Your client is in a holding cell. You're out of a job." "Am I?" Marcus chuckled. He held up the paper. "This is an emergency injunction from Judge Holloway. It freezes all assets of Thorne Tech, including the charitable donation you just tried to make." The bank flagged the transfer as suspicious activity originating from a compromised account. My heart skipped a beat. "I own the account." "Do you?" Marcus stepped closer. "According to the affidavit I just filed, you are suffering from a severe psychotic break. A hysterical episode caused by trauma. The judge agreed that a woman who has been catatonic for 3 years doesn't suddenly wake up and transfer $1 billion unless she is mentally unstable." He leaned in, his voice dropping to a hiss. "The money is stuck in limbo, Elena. You can't touch it. And neither can Adrian. But I can." "You?" "I'm the court-appointed interim trustee," Marcus smirked. "Until a mental health evaluation proves you're sane, which takes months, I control the company. I control the servers. And I control the security team waiting outside this door." I looked at the glass wall. 2 large men in suits were standing by the elevators. They weren't police. They were private contractors. Mercenaries. "You're working with them," I whispered. "The people who sent the text." Marcus's smile vanished. His eyes went cold. "I don't know what you're talking about. But I suggest you go back to the Plaza Hotel. We have a room set up for you. A nurse is waiting to sedate you. For your own safety." He reached for my arm. I didn't think. I reacted. I slammed the heavy metal edge of my laptop into his nose. Crunch. Marcus howled, stumbling back, blood spraying onto his expensive white shirt. "Get her," he screamed to the guards outside. I didn't wait. I bolted for the side door, the service exit used by the catering staff. I burst into the narrow hallway, my legs burning. Every step felt like knives were stabbing my calves, but I forced myself to run. I hit the stairwell and practically fell down the first flight. I could hear the heavy boots of the guards pounding on the stairs above me. "Check the lobby," Marcus was yelling from above. "Lock down the building." I wasn't going to the lobby. That was a trap. I needed a ghost. I needed the one person who knew where the skeletons were hidden because she had helped bury them. I needed Sasha. I found her in the underground parking garage, level B3. Sasha was frantically shoving clothes and jewelry into the trunk of her red convertible. She was crying, her mascara running down her cheeks in black streaks. She looked like a rat abandoning a sinking ship. She slammed the trunk and turned to the driver's side, keys in hand. "Going somewhere?" I asked, stepping out from the shadows. Sasha screamed and dropped her keys. She spun around, eyes wide. "Elena, please. I didn't do anything. I'm leaving. I'm going to my mom's in Jersey. You'll never see me again." "Open the trunk, Sasha," I said, walking toward her. "What?" "You heard me. Open it." Sasha hesitated, then popped the trunk. Inside, nestled between piles of designer clothes, was a silver hard drive. I reached in and grabbed it. I knew it. Adrian never trusted the cloud for the dirty stuff. "That's my insurance." Sasha cried, trying to grab it back. "If I have that, Marcus won't kill me." I shoved her back against the car. "Marcus is the least of your problems." "Who is the supplier, Sasha?" "I don't know what you mean." I held up the hard drive. "This drive contains the procurement logs for the last 3 years. I know Adrian was buying neurotoxins. I know he was poisoning me. But he didn't make the poison. Who sold it to him?" Sasha was shaking. She looked at the elevator, terrified that Marcus would appear. It's Apex Bio," she whispered. My stomach turned. Apex Bio was a rival pharmaceutical giant. Why would a rival company help Adrian? "They weren't helping him," Sasha sobbed. "They were blackmailing him. They gave him the toxin to keep you paralyzed because you are the only one who knows the formula for the Thorne Tech encryption algorithm. As long as you were a vegetable, Thorne Tech was vulnerable. They were stealing data, Elena, for 3 years. Adrian let them do it in exchange for the poison." The puzzle pieces slammed together. It wasn't just domestic abuse. It was corporate espionage. Adrian had sold out his own company and his own wife to stay in power. And Marcus Vane was the broker. "Get in the car," I ordered. "What?" "Get in the passenger seat. You're driving me out of here." "No way." Marcus has the exits blocked. Sasha, I said, gripping her arm. I have the hard drive. If we get caught, I hand this to the FBI and tell them you were the mastermind. You go to prison for life. If you drive me out of here, I give you a head start. Sasha looked at me, then at the hard drive. She made her choice. Get in. We peeled out of the parking spot, tires screeching. Sasha drove like a maniac, swerving up the ramps. They'll be at the gate. Sasha yelled over the engine. Don't stop, I said. Ram it. Are you crazy? Do I look like a sane woman? We rounded the final corner. The security gate was down. A black SUV was parked sideways, blocking the exit. Two of Marcus's guards were standing there with flashlights. Floor it, I screamed. Sasha screamed, closed her eyes, and slammed the gas pedal. The red convertible roared. The guards dove out of the way. We smashed through the wooden arm of the gate, crack, and clipped the bumper of the SUV. Sparks flew. Metal crunched. But we squeezed through. We shot out onto the street, merging into the heavy New York traffic. I looked back. The SUV was turning around to follow. Go uptown, I directed. Lose them. I opened my laptop. The battery was at 12%. I connected to the car's Wi-Fi. What are you doing? Sasha asked, checking the rearview mirror frantically. Marcus froze the money, I said, typing furiously. He thinks he won because he cut off my cash flow. But he forgot that I don't care about the money anymore. I care about the truth. I accessed the dead man's switch I had coded into the server. Usually, companies try to hide their scandals. But I was about to do the opposite. I was about to turn Thorne Tech inside out. This is going to hurt, I muttered. I hit enter. Instantly, the massive digital billboards in Times Square, which were currently running ads for Thorne Tech's new phone, glitched. Static filled the screens. Then, text appeared. Huge, red letters. Thorne Tech poisoned your water. Oh my God, Sasha whispered, looking up through the windshield as we drove past a giant screen. What did you do? I just released the internal environmental reports, I said. The ones Adrian hid. The chemical dumping in the Hudson River. The cancer clusters in the factory towns. It's all public now. Every news station, every blog, every phone in the city just got a notification. My phone started buzzing. Then Sasha's phone. It was an emergency alert. Thorne Tech leak. Toxic waste dumping confirmed. Authorities advised. Why? Sasha shouted. You're destroying the company. You own the company. I'm burning it down, I said. If Marcus wants to be the trustee of Thorne Tech, let him be the trustee of a crime scene. The FBI won't care about his injunction when they're investigating a massive environmental disaster. They'll raid the building within the hour. I looked at the hard drive in my lap. And once they find this, Marcus goes down for treason. We pulled up to a red light. The traffic was gridlocked. We're stuck, Sasha said, panic rising. It's fine, I said. We're blocks away from the federal building. I'll walk from here. I take this drive to the U.S. Marshals, and it's over. I open the car door. Go, Sasha. Drive to Jersey. Don't look back. Sasha looked at me. For a second, I saw a flicker of respect. You're terrifying, Elena. I learned from the best. I stepped out into the cool night air. The city was chaotic. Sirens were wailing everywhere. People were looking at their phones, gasping, pointing at the billboards. I pulled my coat tight and started walking briskly toward the Federal Plaza. I was 3 blocks away. I could see the flag. I was going to make it. I turned down a narrow side street to cut through the crowd. It was quieter here. Darker. My phone buzzed again. The unknown number. You shouldn't have released the environmental data, Elena. That was bad for business. I stopped. I looked around. The street was empty. Suddenly, a blinding light hit me from behind. A van had pulled into the alley, cutting off my retreat. I turned to run forward, but a figure stepped out from a doorway. It wasn't Marcus. It was a woman. She was tall, wearing a white clinical coat that looked stark and terrifying in the gloom. She held a syringe in her hand. Dr. Eris, I whispered. The woman who had overseen my care for 3 years. The woman who had injected me every morning. Hello, Elena, she said, her voice smooth and professional. You've been a very naughty patient. You missed your dosage today. I backed away, reaching for the pepper spray I had stolen from Sasha's car. Stay back. It's too late for that, Dr. Eris said. I heard the sliding door of the van open behind me. Heavy boots on the pavement. I spun around. Marcus Vane stepped out of the van. His nose was tapped up, his eyes black and blue from where I had hit him. He was holding a taser. You broke my nose, Marcus said, crackling the electricity between the prongs. I'm going to break the rest of you, I snarled. I lunged at him, swinging the hard drive like a weapon. Marcus didn't flinch. He just fired. 2 barbs hit me in the chest. The world turned white. My muscles seized. The pain was absolute. I fell to the wet pavement, twitching, unable to scream. Dr. Eris walked over and looked down at me. She clicked the cap off her syringe. Don't worry, she said, crouching down. We're not going to kill you. That would be a waste of good code. She grabbed my arm. I tried to pull away, but my body wouldn't obey. The taser had done its job. We need the encryption key, Elena, Marcus said, standing over me. And we're going to take you somewhere where no one can hear you scream until you give it to us. The needle pierced my skin. Cold liquid flooded my veins. The familiar, terrifying cold. The paralysis. My vision blurred. The last thing I saw was the red light of the text message blinking on my phone in the gutter. Message read. Then, darkness. The smell hit me first. Bleach, stale coffee, and fear. I tried to open my eyes, but my eyelids felt like they were made of lead. My mouth tasted like copper. I tried to lift my hand to wipe it, but my wrists stopped abruptly, jerking against leather. Clink. I forced my eyes open. I wasn't in a jail cell. I wasn't in a hospital room. I was in a white box. Padded walls. No windows. Just a heavy steel door and a flickering fluorescent light that buzzed like a dying fly. I looked down. I was strapped to a gurney. Thick leather restraints bound my wrists and ankles. I was wearing a thin, paper hospital gown. My expensive dress, my armor, was gone. Welcome back, Sleeping Beauty. I turned my head. Dr. Eris was sitting in the corner, reading a medical chart. She looked calm. Terrifyingly calm. Where am I? I croaked. My throat was dry as sand. You're in a safe place, Elena, Eris said, standing up. She walked over and checked the 4 drip connected to my left arm. A clear bag of liquid hung above me. You had a severe psychotic episode. You were running through the streets, screaming about conspiracies and poison. You attacked your husband's lawyer. We had to sedate you for your own protection. Don't, I whispered. Don't try to gaslight me, Eris. I know what's in the bag. It's the neurotoxin, the same one you've been giving me for 3 years. Eris smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It's a sedative, Elena. You're confused. All that business about hacking the company, exposing Adrian, it was all a delusion, a dream. If it was a dream, I said, my voice hardening, then why is Marcus Vane banging on the door? Thud, thud, thud. The heavy steel door swung open. Marcus stormed in. He looked worse than I felt. His nose was tapped up with white gauze, his eyes were swollen shut, and his suit was rumpled. He didn't look like a high-powered lawyer anymore. He looked like a desperate criminal. Is she awake? Marcus barked. She's lucid, Eris said. But the serum is taking effect. Motor functions should be at 20% capacity. Marcus marched over to the bed. He leaned down, his face inches from mine. I could smell the stale sweat on him. You really messed up my face, Elena, he hissed. I was aiming for your brain, I rasped. But I couldn't find a target. Marcus grabbed my jaw, squeezing hard. Funny. You're still funny. Let's see if you're laughing in 10 minutes. He pulled a device from his pocket. It looked like a high-tech tablet with a strange, conical lens attached to the top. A retinal scanner. You locked the servers, Marcus said. When you initiated the alimony protocol, you didn't just move the money. You encrypted the entire database with a biometric lock. A retina scan. He positioned the device over my right eye. Open your eye, he commanded. Go to hell. Open it. He used his fingers to pry my eyelid open. The red laser scanned my eye. Beep, beep, beep. The tablet flashed red. Access denied. What? Marcus screamed, slamming the tablet on the metal tray. Why didn't it work? It's her eye. It's a duress protocol, Marcus, I said, managing a weak smile. I wrote the code. The system detects pupil dilation and microtremors associated with fear or stress. If I'm being forced to scan, the system locks down even harder. It deletes a terabyte of data for every failed attempt. Marcus stared at the tablet. She's erasing the money, he whispered. She's burning it. You need me calm, I said. You need me willing. And that's never going to happen. Marcus looked at Eris. Up the dosage. Make her compliant. I don't care if she can walk. I just need her to stare blankly at this screen without panicking. If I give her more, her heart might stop, Eris warned. If that money disappears, our hearts are going to stop because the cartel backing Apex Bio will kill us both. Marcus roared. Do it. Eris sighed and turned to the tray of vials. Marcus stormed out of the room to take a call, slamming the door. Eris filled a syringe with a clear, oily liquid. She flicked it to remove the air bubbles. I'm sorry, Elena, she said, sounding almost bored. This is going to hurt. She reached for my foreline. Wait, I said. Eris paused. Look at the nurse, I whispered. Eris frowned. What? The nurse behind you. Ivy. Eris turned. Standing by the door was a young nurse, maybe 22. Her name tag read Ivy. She was trembling. Her eyes were wide with terror as she watched Marcus scream in the hallway. Ivy knows, I said quickly, keeping my eyes on the young girl. She knows this isn't a hospital. She knows you're kidnapping me. And she knows that when this all goes down, Marcus will throw her under the bus to save himself. Ivy flinched. Be quiet. Eris snapped, injecting the fluid into my line. The cold rushed up my arm. My chest tightened. It felt like an elephant was sitting on my lungs. My vision began to swim. Ivy, I gasped, fighting the darkness. Check the news. Thorne Tech. Toxic waste. They're all going to jail. Don't go with them. That's enough, Eris said. She checked my pulse. She's going under. Watch her, Ivy. If her heart rate drops below 40, call me. I'm going to get a coffee. Eris left the room. I was alone with the girl. The room spun. The ceiling tiles started to melt. The neurotoxin was working fast. I couldn't move my legs. I couldn't move my fingers. Please, I whispered. It was barely a breath. Ivy walked over to the bed. She looked down at me. She was crying silently. I can't, she whispered. He has a gun. He is going to kill you. I forced the words out. The FBI is coming. Be a witness, not an accomplice. Ivy looked at the door. She looked at the tablet Marcus had left on the tray. It was still logged into the facility's network. What do I do? She sobbed. The fire alarm, I wheezed. Trigger the sprinklers. Ivy hesitated. She looked at my helpless body. She looked at the cruel restraints. Then, she made a choice. She grabbed the tablet. Her fingers flew across the screen. Beep, beep, beep. A shrill alarm cut through the silence. Strobe lights began to flash. And then, water. Cold, dirty water sprayed from the ceiling sprinklers. It soaked the room instantly. The doors. Ivy shouted over the alarm. The electronic locks disengaged during a fire. Click. The heavy steel door popped open a fraction of an inch. Run, I told her. Go. Ivy ran. I was alone. The water was pouring down on my face, mixing with the sweat and tears. The alarm was deafening. I had to move. I focused every ounce of willpower on my right hand. Move, move, move. The strap was wet now. Leather stretches when it's wet. I pulled. I twisted my wrist until the skin tore and blood slicked the cuff. I screamed into the gag of silence, pulling with the strength of a desperate animal. Snap. My hand came free. I fumbled with the buckle on my left hand. Then my ankles. I rolled off the gurney and hit the floor with a wet smack. My legs were useless. Dead weight. The toxin Eris had just injected was fighting me, trying to shut down my nervous system. I couldn't walk, so I crawled. I dragged myself across the wet tiles, digging my fingernails into the grout. Inch by inch. Pain was the only thing keeping me awake. I reached the door. I pushed it open. The hallway was chaos. Red lights flashing. Staff running. Smoke filling the air. Ivy must have started a real fire in a trash can to sell the lie. I saw a discarded lab coat on a chair. I grabbed it and pulled it over my soaking wet hospital gown. I found a pair of surgical masks in the pocket. I put one on. Now, I was just another panic-stricken doctor in a hallway full of them. I leaned against the wall, dragging my numb legs. I needed a way out. Then I saw it. The elevator. Marcus Vane was standing in front of it, screaming into his phone. I don't care about the fire. Secure the prisoner. He turned his back to me. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. I didn't think. I summoned the last of my strength and lunged. Not at Marcus, but past him. I threw myself into the elevator just as the doors started to close. Marcus spun around. He saw me. His eyes went wide. Elena. He stuck his hand in the door to stop it, but the safety sensor was blinded by the smoke. The heavy metal doors crunched closed on his fingers. He screamed as he yanked his hand back. The elevator began to rise. I collapsed on the floor. I watched the numbers tick up. B1. L1. I wasn't safe yet. I was wet, drugged, and barefoot in the middle of nowhere. The doors opened to the lobby. It was night. Rain was pouring outside, matching the sprinklers inside. I stumbled out. I crashed through the front doors into the parking lot. I saw a delivery truck idling by the curb. The driver had run inside to check the fire alarm. I climbed into the cab. It took everything I had to pull myself up. I locked the doors. I looked at the dashboard. The keys were in the ignition. I looked at my legs. I couldn't feel the pedals. Think, Elena. Code a solution, I muttered to myself. I grabbed the tire iron from under the seat. I jammed it against the gas pedal. I used my hand to press the brake with my left hand, steering with my right. It was madness. It was suicide. I put it in drive. The truck lurched forward. I steered onto the highway, heading toward the lights of Manhattan. I had one destination. The text notification on the driver's phone on the seat next to me lit up. A news alert. Live. Custody hearing for Adrian Thorne underway. Defense claims wife is missing and presumed dead. I'm not dead yet, I whispered. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, lawyers, curious onlookers. They were all there to see the fall of the Thorne empire. Judge Holloway sat high on the bench, looking bored. Mr. Blackwood, the judge said, addressing Adrian's new defense attorney. You are claiming that due to Mrs. Thorne's sudden disappearance and documented history of mental instability, conservatorship of the company should revert to Mr. Thorne immediately? Adrian sat at the defense table. He was out on bail, wearing a fresh suit. He looked humble, sad. The grieving husband again. Yes, Your Honor, Adrian said softly. My wife, she is unwell. She released those false environmental reports in a fit of mania. She has run away. I just want to save the company and find her. Objection, the prosecutor yelled. Mr. Thorne is a flight risk. Sustained, the judge said. But without Mrs. Thorne here to testify regarding the encryption keys, the company is paralyzed. I am inclined to grant temporary emergency powers to Mr. Thorne to unlock the payroll accounts. Adrian hid a smile. He had won. He would get the access, drain the money to a new account, and vanish before anyone realized. I will sign the order, Judge Holloway said, picking up his pen. Bang. The double doors at the back of the courtroom slammed open. Every head turned. I stood there. Or rather, I leaned there. I was dripping wet. I was wearing a stolen lab coat over a hospital gown. I was barefoot. My skin was pale as a sheet, and I was trembling uncontrollably. Elena. Adrian stood up, his face losing all color. I wheezed, my voice echoing in the silent room. I object. Order, the bailiff shouted, moving toward me. Let her speak, a reporter shouted from the gallery. Flashbulbs started popping. I dragged myself down the center aisle. Every step was a battle. My legs were giving out. I fell to my knees halfway to the bench. Mrs. Thorne. The judge looked concerned now. Do you need a medic? I don't need a medic, I gasped, pulling myself up using the railing of the jury box. I need a toxicologist. I looked at Adrian. He was gripping the table, his knuckles white. He told you. I was crazy, I said, pointing a shaking finger at him. He told you. I was paralyzed by a car crash. I reached into the pocket of the lab coat. I pulled out a vial I had swiped from Eris's tray before I escaped. This, I held up the clear liquid, is neurotoxin 4-beta, manufactured by Apex Bio. It shuts down the motor nerves. It mimics paralysis. That's a lie, Adrian shouted. She's hallucinating. She's high. Test me, I challenged, staring at the judge. Right now? Draw my blood. I rolled up the sleeve of the lab coat. My arm was bruised and battered, dotted with needle marks from 3 years of treatment. If you test me, I said, you will find this poison in my system, and you will find that the concentration matches the supply found in Adrian's safe. Your Honor. The prosecutor stood up, looking at me with awe. If the witness is telling the truth, this is attempted murder. We request an immediate emergency recess and a court-ordered blood panel. Granted, Judge Holloway slammed his gavel. Bailiff, secure the defendant. No one leaves this room. Adrian panicked. He looked at the exit. He looked at the window. He ran. Stop him. Adrian vaulted over the railing, heading for the judge's chamber's door. He was fast, desperate, but he wasn't fast enough. I stuck out my leg, my paralyzed leg. Adrian tripped. He went sprawling, face first onto the floor. Before he could get up, two marshals were on top of him. "Get off me!" Adrian screamed, struggling like a wild animal. "I am Adrian Thorne. I own this city. You own nothing," I whispered, collapsing onto the floor as the adrenaline finally ran out. The room spun. The lights faded. I felt hands on me. "Medics," I hoped. "We got you, Mrs. Thorne," a voice said. "You're safe." I closed my eyes. I had exposed the lie. I had stopped the money. But as I drifted into unconsciousness, I remembered one thing. Marcus Vane wasn't in the courtroom, and he still had the encryption codes I had left on the tablet in the asylum. The king was down, but the knight was still on the board, and he was coming for the kill. The heart monitor was annoying. Beep, beep, beep. I opened my eyes. This time, the room wasn't a padded cell. It was a VIP suite at Mount Sinai Hospital. There were flowers on the table, sunlight streaming through the window, and a uniformed FBI agent standing by the door. "You're awake," the agent said, stepping forward. "I'm Special Agent Miller. We have a lot to talk about, Mrs. Thorne." I sat up, ignoring the sharp pain in my muscles. My body felt like it had been run over by a truck, but my mind was clear. "Where is Adrian?" I asked. "In federal custody," Miller said. "Denied bail. The blood test you demanded in court? It came back positive for neurotoxin 4 beta. We raided Adrian's penthouse and found the rest of the supply. He's looking at 20 years for attempted murder, plus another 30 for the environmental crimes you leaked." I let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for 3 years. "It's over." "Not quite," Miller said grimly. He pulled out a tablet. "We have a problem. Marcus Vane." My stomach dropped. "You didn't catch him?" "He vanished from the asylum before we got there," Miller explained. "But 20 minutes ago, the cybersecurity team monitoring Thorne Tech's servers flagged an intrusion. Someone is manually accessing the mainframe at Thorne Tower. He's deleting the evidence," I realized, swinging my legs over the side of the bed. "The supply logs. The emails between Adrian and Apex Bio. If Marcus deletes those, he saves his own skin and protects the cartel that sold the poison." "We have a SWAT team en route to the tower," Miller said. "But the encryption is too strong. We can't stop the wipe remotely. By the time we breach the server room, the data will be gone." "You can't stop it," I said, standing up on shaky legs. I grabbed my coat from the chair. "But I can. Mrs. Thorne, you need to stay in bed. You still have toxins in your system." I looked at the agent. "That data is the only thing linking Marcus to the conspiracy. If he destroys it, he walks free. And I am not letting that monster walk." I walked to the door. "Are you going to arrest me, Agent Miller? Or are you going to drive me?" Thorne Tower loomed over Manhattan like a black glass needle. It was usually a symbol of power, but tonight, surrounded by police tape and flashing lights, it looked like a tomb. The lobby was empty. The employees had been sent home. "Elevators are locked down," Agent Miller said as we entered, his hand on his holster. "The intruder has overridden the controls from the penthouse." "He's not in the penthouse," I said, heading for a nondescript gray door behind the security desk. "He's in the server farm. Sublevel 4. It's the only place you can do a hard reset." "How do we get down there?" I punched a code into the keypad. "I designed the building, remember? There's a maintenance lift for the cooling systems." The door slid open. We stepped into the cramped service elevator. It smelled of oil and ozone. As we descended, the lights flickered. "He knows we're coming," Miller said, drawing his weapon. "He doesn't care," I said. "Marcus is a cornered rat. He's terrified of the feds, but he's more terrified of Apex Bio. If that data gets out, the cartel kills him." The elevator jolted to a halt. The doors opened to a blast of freezing air. The server farm was a cavernous room filled with rows of humming black towers, bathed in blue LED light. It was loud, the sound of 1,000 fans spinning at max speed. And there, at the central console at the far end of the room, was Marcus Vane. He was frantic. He was smashing a keyboard against the terminal, screaming, "Delete! Delete, damn you! Marcus!" I shouted. He spun around. He looked deranged. His broken nose was purple and swollen, his suit was torn, and in his hand, he held a heavy fire axe. "Stay back!" Marcus screamed, swinging the axe at the server rack next to him. Crunch! Sparks flew as metal sheared. "I'll destroy it all. I'll burn this whole place down." "Drop the weapon!" Agent Miller shouted, aiming his gun. "No!" Marcus yelled. "You don't understand. They'll skin me alive. I need to purge the logs. He swung the axe again, severing a bundle of fiber optic cables. The lights in the room strobed red. He's destroying the physical drives, Miller said. I have to take the shot. No, I said, putting a hand on Miller's arm. If you shoot him, he falls on the console. He might trigger the thermal failsafe and melt the cores. We lose the data anyway. Then what do we do? I talked to him, I said. I stepped out from behind the cover of the server rack. I walked into the open aisle. Elena, get back, Miller warned. I kept walking. My legs were weak, but my steps were steady. Hello, Marcus, I said calmly. Marcus breathed heavily, clutching the axe. You just won't die, will you? You're like a cockroach. I'm a coder, Marcus, I said. I fix bugs. And you are a very big bug. I'm erasing it. Marcus spat. I'm 90% done. Another minute, and there's no proof. No poison logs. No money trail. It's just your word against mine. You're not erasing it, I said, stopping 10 feet away from him. Look at the screen. He pointed to the giant monitor above the console. A progress bar read deletion, 92%. I smiled. Do you remember when Adrian told you I was just a vegetable? That I was stupid? Marcus narrowed his eyes. What? You made the same mistake he did? I said. You're looking at the user interface. The pretty pictures I designed for people like you. But you're not looking at the code underneath. I took a step closer. When I built this system, I explained, I installed a mirror protocol. It's a security feature for catastrophic data loss. If anyone tries to mass delete files without the biometric key of the founder, I pointed at the screen. The system doesn't delete them. It interprets the delete command as publish. Marcus froze. He looked up at the screen. The progress bar hit 100%. The text didn't say deleted. It flashed green, upload complete. Upload. Marcus whispered, his voice trembling. Upload to where? Everywhere, I said. The FBI database. The New York Times tip line. And, just for fun, the public blockchain. You didn't just destroy the evidence, Marcus. You just emailed your confession to the entire world. Marcus dropped the axe. It clattered loudly on the metal floor. He stared at the screen, watching the file name scroll by. Apex_bio_invoice_001. Neurotoxin_delivery_log. Bribe_payment_dig_LOA. It was all there. Every dirty secret. Every crime. You killed me, Marcus whispered. The cartel, they'll see this. Then I suggest you let Agent Miller put you in protective custody, I said. It's the safest place for you now. Marcus looked at me. He looked at the agent. He slumped to his knees, defeated. I hate you, he sobbed. Get in line, I said. Agent Miller moved in, cuffing Marcus. Marcus Vane, you are under arrest for conspiracy, kidnapping, and corporate espionage. As they dragged him away, I walked over to the console. I typed in one final command. System lockdown, end session. The screens went black. The humming slowed. The blue lights faded. I stood in the silence of the server room. I touched the cold metal of the mainframe. This was my baby. I had built it. They had stolen it. And now, I had taken it back. I felt a tear roll down my cheek. Not from sadness. From relief. It's done, I whispered. 6 months later. The wind was cold off the Hudson River, but I didn't feel it. I stood at the base of Thorne Tower. Except it wasn't called Thorne Tower anymore. The massive steel letters had been removed. In their place, a new sign was being installed. The Phoenix Co-op. I adjusted my scarf and walked through the revolving doors. The lobby was bustling, but it wasn't filled with terrified assistants and arrogant executives in expensive suits. It was filled with engineers, customer service reps, and developers. They weren't whispering. They were laughing. Morning, Elena, the security guard called out. Morning, Sam, I smiled. I walked to the elevator. I didn't need a key card anymore. We had removed the executive restrictions. I rode up to the 40th floor. The boardroom. The long mahogany table was still there, but Adrian's throne-like leather chair was gone. In its place were 20 simple office chairs. The room was full, not with board members, but with the employee council. Representatives elected from every department. All right, everyone, I said, taking my seat. Just a seat among equals. Let's call this meeting to order. A young woman raised her hand. It was Ivy, the nurse who had saved my life in the asylum. She was wearing a hoodie, not a uniform. I had hired her to run our new health and wellness division. We have the quarterly numbers, Ivy said, projecting a chart on the wall. since we switched to the employee ownership model and released the new ethical sourcing guidelines. Profits are up 15%. A cheer went around the table. And, Ivy added, smiling at me, the Elena Thorne Foundation has finished the cleanup of the toxic dump sites in Jersey. The water is clean. I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. Good. That's good work. After the meeting, I stood by the window, looking out over the city. Adrian was in a supermax prison upstate, serving the first year of a 50-year sentence. Marcus Vane had turned state's witness against the Apex Bio cartel and was currently living in a witness protection program in Nebraska, probably managing a Cinnabon. I looked down at my phone. A news alert popped up. Tech giant reborn. How the invalid wife revolutionized corporate America. I swiped it away. I didn't care about the fame. I reached into my purse and pulled out a small, old photo. It was of me and my dad, standing in our garage, covered in grease, working on my first computer. He had died before Thorne Tech became a monster. Before Adrian ruined everything. We fixed it, Dad, I whispered to the photo. We fixed the code. I put the photo away and turned back to the room full of people. My people. I wasn't the invalid wife anymore. I wasn't the victim. I wasn't even the CEO. I was just Elena. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment below where you are watching from.